Hi, everybody. It's Elektra Yao, artist, visa lawyer, and entertainment lawyer. I have offices in New York, in the heart of New York City, right next to Times Square, and in New Jersey, in Clifton, New Jersey. But we work with clients all over the US and all over the world. Today, I wanted to talk about something that comes up actually fairly often for me in my practice. And I want to talk about my clients who are on their O1s and get married. So a lot of the times when you're on your O1, you're networking, you're meeting people, and you meet somebody and you fall in love. And after you fall in love with that person, you decide to take your relationship to the next level, i.e. decide to get married. Now, if you're on your O1 and you get married to a US citizen, I want to talk about that scenario and what happens when you decide to marry a US citizen and decide to adjust status if that's what you want to do. Now, when you're on your O1 and you marry a US citizen, there's no real difference if you weren't on your O1. The difference comes in once you want to travel outside of the US, and we can talk about that maybe in another video because it's a little bit complicated. But when you're married to a US citizen and you decide that you want to adjust status and no longer be a non-immigrant status, sometimes the first issue that will come up is whether or not the O1 is a dual intent visa. The O1 is a dual intent visa, which means that you can have that desire to be here temporarily and then go back home, but you can also simultaneously have that desire to remain in the US permanently, which is why the trajectory from going to O1 to EB1A is absolutely fine, or O1 to EB2 is absolutely fine. It's not an issue. Now you get married and you decide you want to move forward and you want to adjust your status so that you can get your green card. What are the things that you need to present to prove that you are in a true marriage, or what we call a bona fide marriage? And this will depend on the relationship, the type of people that you are, what you do in your relationship. But the one central thing that you need to realize is that you need to present your story to USCIS, and you need to include the elements that will allow them to understand the truthfulness of your relationship. So I like to get really, really creative because, like I tell all of my clients, all relationships are different. People love differently. People experience their relationship different ways. But there are a couple of things that USCIS likes to see. So it's really important to include those things in your petition. So the number one thing that we start off with is we start by identifying where you guys live. And I know sometimes people have different living situations. I'll tell you the case of one client who is married and doesn't live with her spouse. Now, a lot of the times people will say, well, how is USCIS going to believe that I'm really in a true marriage? Well, when you are in a real marriage, there's always a reason why you guys aren't living together. And in my client's case, my client is actually studying in a different state and her husband is working in a different state. Now, that's a true valid reason. It doesn't matter if you don't physically live together, as long as there's a true reason or a justifiable reason as to why you're not living together. Otherwise, for people that are living together, you want to really start to document everything. So you really want to start to get people to send you letters. You want to get magazine subscriptions. You want to get a joint credit card so that on your statement you have the same address. You really want to start to unify your lives. And if you think about it, in real life, it's kind of the same too. In real life, even though, for people who aren't preparing petitions for USCIS, in real life, when you get married, you start to merge everything, right? You start to live together. You start to have a joint bank account together. Sometimes you might even switch your name to your spouse's name. It doesn't matter which gender, but sometimes you'll do that. These are all little steps that indicate to the world, right? And indicate also to USCIS that you guys are affirmatively demonstrating to the external world how you guys are actually together and you've unified your life, right? Kind of like a wedding. For a wedding, a lot of people choose to have both sides of the family present because that is a symbol of the unification of your union. And that's what USCIS likes to see. So let's talk about the wedding. So for the wedding, I love to include, if the client has it, I love to include information about the planning of the wedding. So for example, if you decided to have flowers, the emails between you and the florist, or if you decided to have a DJ, maybe the pay stub or the check that you paid the DJ or the band at your wedding. All of these things are true indications of the actual marriage. And I like to include them because not a lot of attorneys like to include those types of things. A lot of attorneys will include maybe the pictures of the wedding, but I like to include the whole story because my goal is to tell the narrative. My goal is to really present your story from beginning, middle, and end to USCIS. So if I have the evidence, I include the preparation of the wedding. And sometimes when we have the receipts of the engagement ring, we include that as well, because that shows that there's thought that went into, the ring that was chosen to propose to the foreign national. So all of these things already exist in your life. It's just a matter of organizing them and presenting it in your petition to tell the stories. So I'm just going to give you like a short rundown, a list of things that you want to include in your marriage-based case. You're going to want to include a lease if you guys, a joint lease if you guys are living together, or a mortgage statement if you guys have bought a house together. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. Mail that's being received, that was my computer, mail that's being received at your house. So for example, if you guys are subscribed to Vanity Fair, include those subscription notices, or that first page of the magazine that has the address at the bottom, include that in your petition. Oh, and here's a tip, highlight everything. So for example, what I like to do in my case is I like to make the job of the officer super easy, because I don't want them to focus on, trying to figure out things. I want to present it to them. So if you guys are subscribed to, for example, Vanity Fair and People magazine, right? And one spouse is subscribed to People, one spouse is subscribed to People magazine, highlight that address so that boom, it stands out and they can see it and understand that you guys have that same address. Don't make them work for it. This is not the time where you want to make somebody reason with a lot of difficulty. You want to present the evidence to them in a very seamless way. And for my artists out there who are getting married or who are married, you understand this because you tell stories in your day-to-day life. All you're doing with your marriage-based petition is you're telling a story in a different way, in a way that they will understand it. Understand your audience, just like you as artists understand what you're doing when you're presenting your art to your audience or your producer or whatever. So again, proving your addresses. So mail, thank you letters, congratulation letters. In this period, people are receiving holiday cards addressed to both of you. You want to get that address stuff out of the way. And then we can start focusing on lifestyle things. So for example, I love to include, because almost everyone who is a client of mine subscribes to Netflix or Hulu. And I really like to include that print screen. You know how Netflix has that print screen with like the names of the people who have different Netflix profiles. I like to include that and highlight the name of my clients. Same with Hulu. For example, another thing that I'd like to include are emergency contacts. So let's say you are a professor at a school. Usually when you get hired, they ask you who is your emergency contact. Write your spouse down. And if you are in a serious long-term relationship and you're not married yet, you should do that anyway, so that it shows longevity and how you guys have been invested in yourself long-term. Another thing that I like to include for certain clients is, let's say you guys have sent money to each other. Let's say, I don't know, you went on a date and you split the date and you Venmo'd your spouse the difference. I like to include those print screens and those screenshots because it shows that both of you are engaging in your relationship together. So a lot of people have these things. I think they just don't think about including it, especially like the Netflix print screens and the Hulu print screens and the Venmo transfers and things like that. Again, this just adds like another layer of depth to your relationship, and it makes you, it really presents the beginning, the middle, and end of your relationship to USCIS. So for example, my filmmakers out there, a lot of times I have filmmakers who will give screenings and give talks after their screenings. Thank your spouse. Thank your spouse, because a lot of the times when you're an artist, you really need that support from your spouse, because being an artist is tough. Being an artist is tough, and you need that support. So I'm going to post, we just got a comment, I'm going to post this. If you can do an informative live about establishing one's brand, registered business while being an O1 artist. This is a great question, and I have so much to say about this. I think that artists really need to start to think about the business of the arts. And when you start to think of yourself as a business, you start to conceptualize and envision yourself as a brand. People who think of themselves as a brand think of long-term monetary success, which is what is my goal for my clients. I really think that a lot of the times clients or artists who come out of conservatories are brainwashed with this, I'm going to be a starving artist, especially if you're located in New York. I understand the romantic aspect of it. Everybody goes through it. I went through it when I was studying film in college. People who know me know that my first apartment in college, I was living in Bushwick when it wasn't cool. I was living in Bushwick with 7 people and 1 bathroom. And I was working on my second documentary film called The N-Word. So I understand the romantic aspect of being a starving artist, but in 2020, there's really no reason why artists cannot monetize their brand and their artistry. So I will try to do a live about that maybe later today or Monday, and talk about the legal structures that you can put in place for yourself, including filing a trademark, establishing an LLC, and thinking about your work long term. But let's go back to the topic at hand, because I think a lot of the times when artists get married, they don't think about the technical aspect of filing the petition, because a lot of the times with our artists, with my artists, we're going from O1, first O1, second O1 to EB1A or EB2, depending on how strong the professional profile is and how long my clients have been working with me. But I wanted to make this video because I think in the span of like 3 weeks, we've had maybe 3 or 4 clients get married and begin their marriage-based petitions and kind of ask me the same questions and be fearful of the process, because they're on their O1 and they're not really sure if they can file the petition. So I'm not sure where people are getting that information, but absolutely if you are presently on your O1 and you marry a U.S. citizen, you can file for a marriage-based petition. If you marry a legal permanent resident, it's a little bit different. And maybe later on in the live, I can talk about some horror stories that I've actually had to fix up, because some people have gone to a notario instead of a licensed attorney. So we got another question in Spanish. ¿Cuánto dura en llegar un permiso de trabajo? So basically the question is, how long do you have to wait to receive your work permit? So I always like to preface this question or preface my answer with before this current administration and during this current administration. So the short answer is, during Obama, it was about 3 months, or so during the previous administration, 3 months. During this current administration, it's taking a little bit longer. We're seeing about 6 to 7 months wait. So to answer your question, 6 meses or 7 meses. But everybody's case is different. You really need to speak to a licensed attorney who's working on your case, or who hasn't worked on your case, or get a consultation. So going back to the type of information you can present in your petition. So you really want to tell the whole story of your relationship. So we need to establish that you live together. And if you don't live together, that's okay, but we need to have an actual reason why you guys aren't living together. Another thing that we want to prove is the commingling of your assets. So I think a lot of the times people aren't aware of this, or maybe they just don't think about this, because a lot of the times we don't think about this outside of the USCIS world. But you really want to start to get your assets joined or together. So if you are buying a house together, you want to make sure that it's in both of your names. If you are buying a car together, you want to make sure that it's in both your names. If you guys have bank accounts or credit cards, you want to start to think about commingling that, paying taxes together, really demonstrating to the outside world how you have unified yourselves, how both you and your spouse have decided to work on your relationship together like a partnership. A lot of the times when we're talking about relationships, we're framing it under this partnership context and concept, because that's really how a lot of successful relationships are. So I told you lease, mortgage statement, credit card statements, bank statements, Hulu or Netflix print screens, emergency contact forms, emails, bank transfers or Venmo transfers or PayPal transfers or Cash App transfers, whatever you guys are doing to split your money. Bills together. So if you are living in New York, you know that you can have your electric bill with both your names. You can have your Con Ed bill in both of your names. You want to get on a family plan together, as telephone family plan. So I gave you about 10 different pieces of evidence or information that I like to see. But of course, every case is different. All relationships are different. Everyone expresses their love, their respect for each other differently. But these are kind of the staples that I mentioned that I like to include. It's like a good base to start from. But as I said, every case is different, every couple is different. And I really like to get to know the dynamics of your relationship when I'm crafting your story and sending your story. And a lot of the times, I'm old-fashioned in the sense that I send a legal brief every time I file a marriage-based case. And a lot of attorneys don't do that because I don't think that they see the value in telling your story. I think that the storytelling aspect with USCIS is really, really, really important, especially because a lot of these types of cases are contentious with USCIS. USCIS doesn't really like to believe in happy endings, and I'd like to present it to them in a way that's easy for them to understand. So we, in my firm at Yao Law Group, we do legal briefs. We include a brief to tell your story and force the officer to really apply the law and the legal standard, because I include it there for them to see it, and other attorneys don't like to do that. So I hope that I answered some of your doubts about being on an O1 and getting married to a U.S. citizen. If there's any additional comments or questions, I can answer them. But I really liked how the person referred to establishing one's brand and business as an O1 artist. This is one of my favorite topics, and I'm very, very passionate about it. So we'll try to get back on later today to discuss this. Later today, I will try to go live with one of my clients who we recently secured his green card. And I hope that his experience with our firm will shed light on how we work and how seriously we take this, because I think that it's one of the key elements to having a successful case, whatever case you choose to apply for, whether it's an O1 or an EB1A or an EB2. It's very, very important to work with somebody that you trust and have a very positive experience, because the communication is very, very important. So thank you everybody for watching, and I will try to go back on later today to discuss the business of the arts, branding, trademark, LLCs, copyrights, O1s, EB1s, and how all of that is connected. A lot of the times I try to force my clients to see themselves big picture instead of just little picture. I think a lot of the times clients just focus on their O1, but the O1, the career, the trademark, the copyrights, all of that is actually all connected. And hopefully I will try to show you how everything is connected later today. So hopefully all of you guys remember the 10 different forms of evidence that I discussed earlier. I will come back later today to talk about the business of the arts, and hopefully I will be back online in Spanish with my client to talk about his experience with our firm. So thanks so much for watching and asking questions, and please share this video, like this video, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to my business pages so that you can get more information about what we do, our firm, and how you guys can craft the strongest petition. Because as I always tell my clients, this is not a game. This is high stakes. This is your life, and you want to make sure that you are in the best hands possible. So I will see everybody later today. Bye.